and all other dignitaries on the dais. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a very important day for Bangalore. Not only because we are holding the international conference for the first time, but we have also had the privileges of hosting the SAFA events. SAFA is a very important regional forum of accounting with 9 bodies being part of its council. SAFA, which had a very humble beginning in the starting, now is an important public advocacy forum which has dedicated itself to issues of quality review assessments, improved standards on governance, ethics, education, and training of constituents, as also its work program on harmonization of international accounting standards, though it has special groups and center of excellence has now taken a major center stage in the voice of SMPs and working of the professionals all across the SAFA region. Friends, 5 of the member bodies are here to a maiden exposition to listen to the public speech of President SAFA, Mr. Arjuna, who has taken over as the President of SAFA in January itself. On this occasion of his public appearance as SAFA President, we, the people in Bangalore, Chartered Accountants and the entire council welcome him. And I want to say only one small thing, that this entire talk is on accounting profession meeting governance mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, governance has become a very systematic word now. Earlier, governors gave an example of a family. There were a couple who were traveling in a ship. The ship was wrecked. They were about to be drowned when a lifeboat came. When the lifeboat came, the husband jumped into the lifeboat and went away to safety. The teacher was reciting this story to his students. He asked, what did the lady shout when the husband went? People had different thoughts. Somebody said, somebody said, you are so selfish. I never thought of you. But one small child said, sir, the lady said, keep my children well. And thereafter, the teacher recited that when the diary of the father came out after his death, the daughter took the diary of the father and read. The father had very clearly written that my wife was suffering from terminal cancer. She was to die, and it was a decision that I will jump onto the lifeboat. Otherwise, I would have loved to perish with her to support the only child in our family, their daughter. As the councils, it is the responsibility of the councils and SAFA to ensure that all member bodies and their constituent professionals are given that stance where their all doubts, all problems are taken into account. We have a very well-deserved dais which shall take into account all the things. So over for the next proceeding. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's always interesting to listen to you because you bring in the right kind of humor. And I think, though we did not laugh out loud, there were a lot of smiles. And I'm sure everybody's now looking forward to more of such actions from the stage. May I request C.A. Narendra Bhattarai, President of ICAI Nepal, to please address us now. We look forward to hearing you, sir. And coming from Nepal, which everybody knows is a wonderful country, I am sure we will hear a wonderful perspective from you as well.
Yeah, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you very much. President of ICAI, President SAFA, Vice President SAFA, President ICAB, ladies and gentlemen. Now I am here to, actually I was asked that when it was said that to make a presentation on corporate social responsibility and the Nepalese contest. I was holding some presentation, but I'm making the general comment on as regard to the governance and the role of the Chartered Accounting Institute to improve the governance in the country. Basically, governance has become a very important word all over the, basically in the developing countries. That means when you go to the government sector, we say that the public financial management is very poor and governance is poor. And we are, because in the developing countries, governance has become one of the factor which is affecting negatively to the growth and development of the country. Now that is the area, and we are in India. Indian Prime Minister also has given more emphasis on the governance, because he has given that less government and more governance, and that is the area that where we have to, as a chartered accountant, we have to focus on. Now, as a chartered accountant, how we can be able to respect or to fulfill that objectives. Basically, there are three areas that where we are to very particular on it. First one, that we must have basically the character of the chartered accountants or the auditing profession. First one is the character. That we must have a good character, that means the professional, abide by the professional ethics, that we have to be very particular on our character. Second one is the capacity. That as a student, as a member, we have to give more emphasis on the capacity, and we have to follow the new development in the development in the accounting sector and the financial sector all over the world, so that we can give the up-to-date service to our stakeholders. And third one is definitely the commitment, that we have to commit to the, we have to fulfill the commitment to our client, to the nation, because we are working for the public interest. Basically, as a chartered accountant, we work for public interest. That's why we have abide by the public interest. We have to fulfill the public interest. That's why we have to give more emphasis on our commitment to fulfill our public interest. And at the same time, we have to fulfill the commitment to our client and commitment to the nation. Therefore, if we can, that's why I put in 3 C's. First C is the character, that is the code of ethics, abide by the code of ethics. 7C is the capacity as a member, capacity of the student, we have to develop our capacity. Third C is the commitment to the nation, commitment to the civil society, commitment to our client. Therefore, in order to improve, if we improve that, then we can also we can give more service, or we can give the service to improve the corporate governance sector of the government sector. As in the previous, in the inaugural session, the minister also told that, and A. Rahman also told that, that means the public finance management and the government accounting system is very weak. In order to improve that, there is a role of the chartered accountant and accounting professionals to improve the this sector. That's why we have to first of all, we should be ready to fulfill the objective that, as I told, and at the same time we will be in a position to improve the government sector, so that the government also will be benefited to get our information, get our professional commitment to them. One of the major problems that government accounting system has in this part of the world is that the use of a professional accountants or professional accountants is not used by the government in the public finance management system. That's why we have to provocate with the government, and we have to take initiative to the government that we chartered accountants and the accounting professional can help to improve the public finance management system. For that purpose, the engagement of the professional in the government accounting system or public financial management system has to be increased. And that is the area wherein we are propagating. In case of the Nepalese contest, our public finance management system also is very poor, and there have been a lot of initiative taken by the government and also decided to implement the NEPSAS, Nepal Public Sector Accounting Standards, but there is no bridging that how to use the professional accountants to implement Nepal public finance, public sector accounting. That has not been bridged yet. Therefore, that has been one of the problems to implement the NEPSAS in Nepal. And similarly, in case of now we are as regard to the IFRS implementation, that we have decided to implement IFRS from this year 14-15 in the phased-wise manner, so that we will be in a position to improve the public finance management system and also the corporate government in the corporate sector. That's why initiative has been taken. In Nepal to improve the corporate governance in the corporate sector and also in the government sector. But job has been started, but a lot of things has to be done. This is the Nepalese perspective, and also this is the perspective also in the SAFA region, and there is not much difference between countries to countries, but the extent is surely there are some differences. Therefore, this is the perspective of the professional accountants in the Nepalese contest. I hope that in days to come, we'll be in a position to improve the corporate governance sector and the financial reporting system, and in the corporate sector and also in the government sector. For that purpose, we'll be in a position to convince the government to use our expertise to improve this, both this corporate governance and financial reporting sector. And this is the perspective that I could tell to you. And this is only a sharing of the experience, not new things, but this is a sharing experience. And with this, I take leave from you. If there are any things you can, if there are any questions that you want to put in, I will be happy to respond that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, C.A. Narendra Bhattarai. While if anybody has questions, I suggest we take them offline, because we are running a little behind schedule and we'd like to make up as much lost time as we can. Right now, it's the time for a maiden speech of the SAFA President, Mr. Arjuna Herat. And SAFA is the South Asian Federation of Accountants, formed in the year 1984, which represents nearly 300,000 accountants having membership to various national and international accounting bodies. Shri Arjuna Herat is an FCA and president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and been appointed recently on the 1st of January, in fact, as the president of the South Asian Federation of Accountants. We'd like to listen to the SAFA president, Mr. Arjuna Herat. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together to listen to this maiden speech. And he's coming here all the way from Sri Lanka, which is, again, another very beautiful country. Over to you, Mr. Arjuna.
Thank you. President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Mr. Raghu, Vice President Manoj, Vice President of SAFA, Naeem, presidents of the other professional institutes and delegates from those institutes, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to be here today among you, a large gathering. And in fact, this is my first official engagement as the president of SAFA. I must thank President Raghu for hosting the SAFA committee meetings and board meetings in India. We've had a very successful meeting. and also inviting us to speak at this ceremony. SAFA is a very progressive body. I would like to speak a little bit about SAFA before I talk about the subject matter on governance. SAFA, in fact, was formed before SAARC was formed. And today, SAFA is an apex body of SAARC. We have 9 member bodies, 9 professional accountancy bodies as members of SAFA. Unfortunately, we don't have Afghanistan, Bhutan, or Maldives in the SAFA yet. We have Maldives as an associate member because they do not have professional accountancy organizations. I must tell you, this region is a very important region from a global perspective. As you would know, this region has over 300,000 accountants and over 1 million students. And you heard that the Indian Institute of Chartered Accountants is the second largest institute in the world. We have been so progressive that the international professional bodies like ICAI has been recognizing us to produce accountants not only for our own local markets, but internationally. We heard from the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in India of how many chartered accountants from India is working in the rest of the world. In fact, when it comes to Sri Lanka, we have 25 to 30% of our members working overseas. I think it's similar if you talk about the other countries. Now, we must, I think the profession, accounting profession is one of the most progressive professions in the SAARC region, and we must continue this momentum. We must continue this momentum. Today, if you really see, SAARC, the South Asian region, occupies 3% of the global land space, but has 21% of the population of the world, 1.7 billion. And the entire world is looking at South Asia. Why? It is because of the market size, and it is because the talent and skills that people have here, that we have here. However, our progress of the South Asian region has not been as good as the rest of the world. And you must ask why. Today we see, if you take one of the most progressive economies in the world, the United States, attracted the best talent from all over the world. They basically imported the best talent from all over the world, nurtured them, and this talent contributes to the economic growth and development. And it is our professionals, our best brains, that in fact is working in the West. Now, why can't we retain them in our own countries? Why can't we retain them in our own countries, nurture them, and get them to contribute to our country, and also export services? And that's our aspiration. That's the aspiration that we must have, of actually retaining this talent and not going overseas and working in those countries and contributing to those countries, and it's a brain drain, but we must retain this talent. And I must say the accounting profession has been a profession of that stature. We managed to produce accountants who are world class, and we believe that we will continue to do that. And SAFA, as a regional body, would like to play a role of bringing about a synergy between the countries in the region to be able to have uniform standards and benchmark each other against each other, adopt best practices, so as a region we become extraordinary power in terms of professional skills and knowledge. So that's the aspiration, and I must say that I'm very happy to wear the mantle of SAFA lead president, and I would contribute what I could do during the year that I am supposed to serve as president. With those few words on SAFA, I would like to get into corporate governance. Now, one would ask, what's the interests that the chartered accountants have in relation to corporate governance? In fact, today, corporate governance doesn't have a custodian, as I see. Who is championing corporate governance? There's no single entity, body that champions corporate governance. A lot of people talk about corporate governance, and I don't think there's one body who champions and gets corporate governance going in the way it should go. I believe the accountants has a role to play in this. In fact, in Sri Lanka, we have decided we are the custodians of corporate governance. That is the Institute of Chartered Accountants. Why? Because the accounting professionals, whether they work in the corporate sector or whether they are in practice, are ultimately accountable for protecting public interest. The accountant or the finance director in the corporate will sign off the balance sheet, and this balance sheet and the financial statements depends on how the transactions have been accounted and whether the transactions have been properly processed, whether it has been properly executed, and are they ethical transactions. And if something goes wrong, he becomes accountable. And he's a controller, he's a custodian of that. Similarly, public interest, the public expects the accountant, the auditors, to actually certify the accountants. Now, we cannot do that in isolation of corporate governance. If the corporate governance framework does not exist properly in the corporate world, I can tell you the financial controller, the finance director, and the auditor is in trouble. I can assure you that. So we believe the chartered accountants have a role to play in corporate governance, and I believe the chartered accountants must take the mantle of the custodian of corporate governance. So we, in fact, in Sri Lanka does the corporate governance best practice code along with the Security and Exchange Commission, and we actually ensures that the SEC mandates that to corporates, and we believe, but the problem we have is that this corporate governance code is being considered as a rule-based document, and people will tick boxes in the annual report saying they have fulfilled the corporate governance requirements. But do they really practice corporate governance in the companies? We believe that doesn't happen properly. So we have gone a step further and decided that we must do training on the corporate governance and directors training. So we have gone and now decided to start on training corporate directors, and we have not stopped at that. And we have said that the directors have to be accredited. They are directors to be appointed to corporate bodies. They have to have accreditation. So we have actually started a proper process of accreditation of directors, which is in fact the Institute of Chartered Accountants is the only body that is accredited to do this accreditation. And therefore we have taken this role to ensure the corporate directors understand their role in corporate governance. We also want to make sure that there is incentive for people to follow proper corporate governance procedures, and the market must value that. Markets must provide, enhancing the company's value in the market if the company is following proper corporate governance requirements. So therefore, we are now mandating a corporate governance scorecard, where there would have to be assurance on the corporate governance scorecard. And in the event the corporate governance scorecard provides you a higher score, we would want the market to give a higher value to that corporate body. So we are in fact taking that route of actually a corporate governance scorecard and an assurance on the corporate governance scorecard so that the market will recognize which are the proper, better governed companies. So these are some of the measures that we adopt, and I believe we do have, as chartered accountants, a significant role to play in this, and we believe the code of conduct we as chartered accountants go through is a good base, and we want to ensure the students actually understand this very well so that when they become professionals, they will practice those. I believe these rules are not as effective as the values that are embedded in a person. So we want to ensure that the students are not only taught corporate governance rules, but proper values are being inculcated in students. So we are actually going the process of ensuring a proper value system in the students so that they are in a stage to propagate good corporate governance values when they go into the world. So as SARC, what we really like to do is some of the best practices that each of our countries have has to be shared among rest of the community, professional community in this SAFA and SARC. So we have created a knowledge portal very recently so that it will allow you chartered accountants to network not only among yourselves, but with your regional peers. Our aspiration is that our South Asian community, professional community, becomes one community. We believe we should harness that and build synergy and strength to be one community who are considered top-class world professional accountants. So we will endeavor to build this networking opportunity for all of you and also benchmark one against the other across borders. So I don't think I should take too much of time because I think I heard that time is running out. But I would like to wish Raghu all success in his new ventures as he pass out and when he becomes immediate past president. I would like to wish Manoj all the very best in his new term as the new president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. And I would like to wish each one of you a very successful conference. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure we all take a lot of messages and we compare the situation in India as compared to Sri Lanka, and there may be a lot of learning lessons over there. May I now request CA Sanjeev Chowdhury, Central Council member of ICAI, to please offer a formal vote of thanks. But before that, we have this pleasant duty of handing over a memento to our guests. And sir, we would request you also to join us in doing the honors. So, memento to our guests. May I request Sri Sanjeev Chowdhury to hand over a memento to Mr. Naeem Akhtar Sheikh, Vice President of SAFA. Sir, this is a very beautiful memento and I'm sure it will grace your desk. And I assure you that this peacock will not fly away. I now request the President to please hand over a memento to Mr. Arjuna Herath, President of Sri Lanka, President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, my pardon. May I request Sri Charanjot Singh Nanda to hand over a memento to Mr. Masi Malik Chowdhury, President of ICAI, Bangladesh. Thank you, gentlemen. It's always a pleasure to have these kind of opportunities to take photographs and keep them as memories. Over to you, CA Sanjeev Chowdhury, Central Council member, ICAI.
I think there's one memento pending.
Sorry, my huge apologies. I guess I sometimes get a little flustered with seeing all these dignitaries and very special people. Requesting the President to do the honors to hand over a memento to CA Narendra Bhattarai. My apologies again. Thank you, sir. Over to you, CA Sanjeev.
Thank you very much. It is indeed my honor and privilege to be performing this welcome duty of proposing a vote of thanks on this SAFA session, wherein we had the President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. My compliments to Mr. Arjuna Herath, President of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and also the President SAFA effective 1st January 2015, sir. I understand that today he had the occasion to chair his maiden SAFA board and assembly meeting. And sir, it must be an important day for you when you had to deliver your maiden public address to the CA fraternity. I also thank Mr. Narendra Bhattarai, President, Chartered Accountants Nepal, for his enthused address on the role of accountancy profession in meeting governance standards. My thanks are also due to Mr. Naeem Akhtar, Vice President SAFA, past President of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, Chartered Accountants Bangladesh President, Mr. Messiah Malik Chaudhry. I hope I have your name right, sir. I'm sure that SAFA as an apex body of SAARC will have a more meaningful role to play in the emerging paradigm and being a part of South Asia where it is going to be a growth engine now. These gentlemen therefore have an onerous responsibility and a very important task on hand. My thanks to Mr. Rahman Khan also in absentia for his guidance and mentor to ICAI in SAFA. Thank you all.
Thank you, gentlemen. With this, we conclude this particular session and move on to the next one, which I'm sure you are just as eagerly awaiting. While they do the basic stuff of moving the furniture around and ensuring that the right nameplates are in position, just a couple of hygiene announcements. We will have a cultural program at the end of the day today. And I promise you that it will be something you will really enjoy and take home a lot of memories of. Okay, while the stage is getting organized, I think, yes, Mohan. Yeah, we've got the cursor. It will reach you at the desk, sir. May I request CATV Mohan Das Pai, Chairman, Manipal Global, to come up onto the dais. And may I request Ms. CA Abhijit Bandopadhyay, Central Council Member, ICAI, also to join us on the stage. CA Abhijit Bandopadhyay, Central Council Member, will be the session moderator for this session. And put up Mohan Das Pai. I think a big round of applause is due to this one man who's made in Bangalore proud. We all feel, yes, of course, he's made CS proud. He's made Bangalore proud. He's made all of us who are associated with him in one way or the other proud. And me particularly proud because he was my first boss. Mohan Das Pai, there's a lot to say about him, but I will say only 3 sentences because he's told me very clearly that I don't want to be, I don't want a very large introduction. There are men and there are some Mohan Das Pais. He's an outspoken professional and constantly encourages women to stand up and be counted. Mohan is a person everyone greatly admires and respects. His stint at Infosys brought a shine to the corporation. He specially encourages women professionals, and I must say, I am one of them. As an investor, his keen eye is constantly looking for good ideas and great teams. And with his recent decoration of Padma Shri, which is a shining diamond in his already full cap, we are so proud of you, Mr. Pai. I would also request CA Prafulla Chhajjat, Central Council Member of ICAI, to join us on the dais. And I'm sure, like me, all of you are looking forward to hearing Shri Mohan Das Pai, because he's often giving out ideas faster than you can catch them. He's giving you opportunities faster than you can reel them in. So over to you, Mohan. May I request you to speak, but before then, as the session coordinator and the moderator, may I request CA Abhijit Bandopadhyay, Central Council Member of ICAI, to start this whole thing rolling. And over to you, Shri Abhijit Bandopadhyay.
Thank you very much, Madam. Women in India are really empowered. Good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, our beloved President Raghu and Vice President Manoj, for having organized this great conference and giving me the opportunity. We talk about emerging global hub in India for the accounting professionals. Friends, we go back a few years, 2008, when there was a global meltdown, everything was in bad shape. India was no exception. If you remember, we started talking about Sensex reaching 8,000, 5,000. People were really scared. Well, even that day, I had a lot of confidence in Indian economy, Indian experts, and I knew that India will turn around. Very soon, we saw that India has turned around, and not many corporates were really affected by this global meltdown. There are reasons. My firm belief is, well, in India, we have the best regulators giving a very cozy environment for the industrialists. The public sector playing a stellar role. The private sectors are not very aggressive, giving a better results and ensuring sustainability. We all Indian public have a great role to play because we have the consumption pattern very high, and with the phenomenal development in technology, I think India started being a global hub for investment. With this kind of secured environment, India started getting fund flow from countries abroad, and there was no end. Today, the Sensex is touching 30,000. And I'm sure when the countries abroad, industrialists and investors look at India for their investment, they look at two things. One is the security to the principal, which is there, and the return, which is reasonably good. So India has to do well. Now look at the accounting professionals. Well, we say that we are the largest, second largest body in the world. We have 225,000 members, 875,000 students. But that's the statistics about quantity. Look at the quality. When I was very young, fresh chartered accountant, I remember somebody said in US, they used to say, what do the Indian accountants know about debits and credits? They don't know because they are not at par. Well, the journey was long, and I personally was involved in making of standards for last 14, 15 years. Today, we have the best of the accounting standards, benchmarked with the global standards. We are bringing out IND AS, IFRS converged accounting standards. The Ministry of Corporate Affairs has laid down the roadmap. From 2016-17, it will be mandated on the first category of companies. And ministry and all the regulators are working hand in hand with the ICAI. They have recognized. In the inaugural session, Honorable Minister and the Member of Parliament have categorically stated, we are proud to be a chartered accountant. In auditing standards, I am responsible for last 5 years. When I represented our institute and India in International Accounting Standards Board, I saw, well, at one point of time, they used to look at only European countries and America, and in Asia, Japan and China. They thought they are developed in accounting and auditing. Today, with all pride, we can say, we are totally converged with all the auditing standards, with the global standards, and India has got a best position globally. Look at all the regulations, look at all the practices and procedures the ICAI has been working on. ICAI has placed all of you, all of us, the chartered accountants, in the best position. Of course, we have a great advantage of the language, the communication, because they said every country has to translate their standards into their own language, which is a barrier. India does not have, because we speak English, we learn English, we talk English, we eat English. So that's an advantage. And of course, the economic condition, which really has led many Indian accounting professionals to go abroad, set up, because, or maybe we bring work from countries abroad in the form of VPOs and KPOs. There also, that's a great advantage. Looking at all this, I feel very strongly that yes, India enjoys a great position in the global economy, a very fast developing country. coming out as the best resource, strongest economy. Similarly, we accountants have played and are playing a great role in this. I am sure in the days to come, we'll continue our journey towards the greater heights, and I'm sure we'll all empower each other, technically, technologically, so that we can make India further proud. Thank you very much. I would like to invite now Padma Shri CA TV Mohandas Pai for his great speech. Mr. Pai, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. President Raghu, Vice President Manoj, members of the profession, my esteemed colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to be here to present to you my views on how India could emerge as a global hub for the accounting profession. You got the... Yeah. First, let me say that the success of a profession will depend on how India succeeds substantially. Yes, many of us could succeed without India succeeding. Many of us have done well without India succeeding. But our profession is linked to the future of this economy, and that's why we must care about this economy. If economy becomes a very dominant economy in the world, all of us will undoubtedly do well. Now, our economy has done well in the last 10 years, and I'm going to show you some data, because this economic growth is not percolated in the minds of many people in this country. And we need to look at data to see how well we are done. In the last 10 years, we have seen our economy go from $436 billion to $1.8 trillion. That is, we have grown at 11.8% CAGR. Our population has grown by 16%, stabilized at 1.3% now. Our per capita income has gone up by 10.1%. Exports by 16%, all CAGR per year. By any stretch of imagination, is a very remarkable economic performance. And we are seeing change. But in a large country like India, you see change at the margin and not change on the base. Our share of world trade has gone up to 4.2%. And let's not forget, in 1840, India and China made up 45% of world GDP. By 2050, India and China will make up 30% of world GDP. And we will come back to the position that the world was in 1840 sometime in the next 35 years. So the dominant economic power in this century will be Asia, led by China, and then India. So let's see India's GDP growth rate. We have been growing at 9.5% for many years, and people say we'll grow at about 7.8 to 9% for the next 10 years. We could overtake China in its growth rate, and we have grown at an average of 7.9% a year in the last decade, which is remarkable. Of course, we had the last 2 years where we slipped. This year we'll grow at 5.2%, which is not very good. But whatever it is, 5.2% in the world where everybody is growing negatively is not bad. And this is a very interesting chart. Our role model is not any country in the world. It's not the United Kingdom. It's not France. It is not Singapore. It's not Japan. It is China. Because only India and China have a population of more than 1 billion people. And if you look at this chart, we are where China was 10 years ago. China today is a $10 trillion economy. $10 trillion. That's remarkable. It's the second largest economy in the world. And it will overtake the United States nominally another 10 years, or maybe 15 years, if it continues to grow at 7 to 8%. At the same time, we are the third largest economy in the world in PPP terms. And that too is remarkable. If you go on the streets, you don't see that. But if you look at data, you certainly will see that. China grew at 9.9% a year from 1979 to 2011. No country has grown at the pace China did ever in human history. Ever in human history. And no country grew at the pace India did in the last decade. So we are closely following China, and hopefully if we grow at 8.3% a year for the next maybe 20 years, we too will be a $10 trillion economy, 5 times our economic size, and that gives you an idea of the size of the opportunities that lie in India. This is another slide you must see, and you must see this data very carefully. I said in 1840, India, China made up 45% of world GDP, then started the colonial exploitation of India. This decade, This decade, 2011 to 2021, will occur an event which last occurred in 1840, and that is the emerging markets outside the OECD, Europe, the United States, and Japan will be lesser in GDP than the emerging markets. So the emerging markets are going to overtake the OECD in terms of total economic size. And this last happened around 1840 or so. And that means for close to about 200, 250 years, we're going to see another economic event that is going to change the way the world is. The rise of shale gas in the United States, oil prices coming down, the decline in Europe, the population decline in Japan are all part of this great change. So in the decade 2021 to 2031, very clearly, the rest of the world is going to dominate the OECD. Global geopolitics, global power flows, global flows of capital are all going to change. And we in India must be prepared for that. So we are an emerging hub for the global accounting profession, as we were for IT 10 years ago. Now we are the dominant IT power of the United States in the world. We have a good program for students, 235,000 accountants, 850,000 students, and bilateral agreements, etc. But we need to grab the next big opportunity to become the center of accounting for the whole world. You'll be surprised that a $3 billion business is being done by Indian IT companies like accounting right now. The accounting of major multinational firms in the world is being done in Bangalore and many centers by the IT companies electronically. They're live on the system on a global basis. And 15% talent pool for this comprises of chartered accountants. So the biggest competition for chartered accountants in the next 10 years is going to come from these kind of firms as they take more and more work globally in accounting. But to become a globally competitive, what should we do? We should adopt global accounting standards. What the Institute is doing is not right. What the MCA is doing is not right. We must be the best in the world. We must adopt the global standards early. We must not have carve-outs. And we must make sure we take the pain now and we become dominant. We cannot be a second-class power in this world anymore. We cannot take IFRS 2 years from the time most countries took. 105, 106 companies that got IFRS, but we're now moving to a poor version of IFRS called Ind AS. Ind AS, I would opine, ladies and gentlemen, my personal opinion is an apology for an accounting standard because it's not the best standard in the world. Does India require or does India deserve an accounting standard which is not the best in the world? You want to be a global superpower, you are a large country, you're a dominant economy, and don't you want the accounting standard which is the best in the world? Are we second-class citizens in this country? Are we chartered accountants not knowledgeable enough? Why are they imposing these standards on us? Because they missed one important point. An accounting standard is there to protect investors, not to protect Indian companies. If Indian companies have poor accounting, we should not care for them. We should care for investors. We have $400 billion FI flows, $1.6 trillion in the market capitalization. Why are we protecting poor Indian companies who have poor standards in accounting? We don't have an obligation to Indian companies as the preparers of statement. Our obligation is to the user, to the banks, to the investors, to everybody else. They are our constituency. We attest a financial statement for the users and not for the preparer. And we have got our priorities mixed up. And globally, let me tell you, I've been to many international forums. People ask why India is not shaping up, why India is not leading, and why India is following, why India is lukewarm. And this should be answered unequivocally. And today, we're having this Ind AS come in with a lot of carve-outs. And my question to all of you is, why don't we allow Indian companies to follow full IFRS without carve-outs if they want it voluntarily? Why should we force them to follow Ind AS with carve-outs? And I'll give you one carve-out, that the carve-out on financial state, foreign exchange transaction, effect of foreign exchange transaction. And let me give you an example. If there are two companies, one with borrowing in rupees and one in borrowing in dollars, the dollar borrowing will be cheaper, profit will be higher compared to the Indian rupee borrowings. But there's a risk in the foreign currency borrowing, and that risk is currency fluctuation. The risk has to be exposed, this has to be accounted in the balance sheet, cannot be kept open. And international standards say you have to mark to market because you are speculative. And Raghuram Rajan has gone on record. Only 15% of Indian companies don't do hedge accounting. They're not taken hedges. They left it open. And we are allowing them because we allow them to capitalize into equity and amortize over a period of time. We can't allow them to amortize. What is the value of the attestation function, value of the balance sheet in terms of risk, if you allow them to do that? And why do that? Do the investors who buy the company stock, do the bankers who buy that, understand what the risk in the balance sheet is? They don't understand, they will not understand because it is left open and it's creating a systemic risk for the entire Indian economy. So we should have the best standards. We should have regulations on par with the world. And the regulations should say very clearly, we are allowed to consolidate easily, we are allowed to possibly market ourselves much better instead of having antiquated norms, and get regulations which are forward-looking so our members get empowered. We must have ease in mobility of members. We must work with other countries so that our degree is recognized on a mutual basis so that we could work in other countries easily. Why don't we recognize the CPA program? Allow the Americans to come and practice in India. Do you think anybody is waiting at the door to come to India and take away our work? Nobody can match the billing we do. We work 18 hours, we bill peanuts, and they don't want this money for the small amount, right? Nobody is going to compete with you. So we have to do that. Next, the Big Four consolidation is a global danger in all around the world among the regulators. I've spoken to many regulators and they tell me in confidence, this consolidation is becoming a big danger. In most OECD countries, the Big Four take away 80% of the work of the accounting work of the large firms. They become oligopolies. And no profession should have oligopolies. And that's something that we in India should look. Even in India, the Big Four are dominating. I don't blame the Big Four. I respect them for what they are. I have nothing against them. But I see a systemic risk. And the risk is very clear. What happened to Anderson when Anderson fudged the accounts of Enron? They were banned. And if somebody does it again, and the chances are somebody will do it because many people are led by other things, and if somebody gets banned, what happens to the rest? What happens to the accounting profession? What happens to companies? So there's a systemic risk, and this is something that we need to do in this country. By using the competition commission mechanism, we should make sure that nobody becomes extremely dominant and it allows greater competition to come in. And this is something that we have to do to build competitiveness, because competitiveness comes from a larger base and much better standards. What should the institute do? We should stop protecting Indian industry and adopt global standards and take care of the investors and not industry. We should change from being industry-led to telling investors, trust us, the day we sign the accounts, it is sacrosanct, and our word is a bond. We should invest in research. How many accounting standards have we drafted? We have 230,000 accountants, the second largest body in the world, but have we drafted any accounting standards? Do we have any accounting research in our universities? We don't have anything. And how many years we spent on this? We must take a stand. We must have research. We must understand the diversity of Indian membership. Politically, our institute is a democracy. But we get members from small firms, from firms who do only taxation, and they sit at the institute and they look at major global issues, look at accounting and everything else. So the wide diversity, how do we use this